Hi everyone, welcome back into my kitchen, Cooking with Carol Diane. I'm Diane, but I'm set aside a time that sometimes I just want to have a little chit chat, talk about whatever's on my mind, and I call it tea time. Well, this is tea time. So right now I'm going to have some tea and talk about whatever is on my mind. And I've got a couple of little things that have happened, last week and over the weekend. This is Monday, it's starting a whole new week. I hope your week is good. But over the weekend, I had a couple things that happened. So one, I went out, we were actually finding some leftover shingles to our roof, and we had those put on. And in the course of moving boxes and doing, I actually found a tote that had just a few of my collection of teapots and teacups that I thought was in my other shed. I really did. So out there in one of them is this little teapot that I've had for many years. It has little pansies on it. I don't know if you remember these. They came back in the, I don't know, probably early 80s, I'm gonna say. And it has the little matching teacup. Now, where did I get this? At my local grocery store in the floral department. They would put flowers in here, and they'd tape the top down to the side, and then you could buy, actually I think there was a little flower plant or something in the little teacup also. Well, the very first thing I got was the teacup, because that's all I could afford at that time. Really, that's all I could afford. And then I went back and I got the teacup. I've had this thing that long, a very long time. So I did find a couple of the other teapots, but I don't want to bring them all out yet until I get all of them to kind of show you, well, here's all the teapots. And really, it was kind of overwhelming, folks. I looked at that box as I kept unwrapping one teapot after the other, and I thought, why? Why are you hanging on to all of this? I don't know. When I find my other box, because I put this box of the teapots and the nice little teacups, I put it in my computer room, computer/art room that I have. I put it in there and I thought, okay, when I get the other box eventually, I'll put them all together, and then I'm just gonna weed through this and say, okay, some of these are going out because I don't need them. I have my favorites of my teapots, I really do, but I don't need all of these teapots, I really don't. That's just kind of an overload. It is. Okay, so first thing I want to talk about is, oh my gosh, look on my list, my to-do list. All of them I got done, finally. There is a couple of things on this list. Most of it's checked off, it really is. But I did get the garage doors painted before the weekend. I did just so much, and I think you know from watching me, you've just been kind of tuning in and watching my videos on walk around the yard about what I've been doing. My yard looks so pretty, everything was great. Then disaster happens. And my last video that I called Hurricane at Diane's House. Well, that's what I kind of thought it was. All of a sudden, out of the blue, we had a rainstorm that turned into a hailstorm that just demolished a lot of things out in my yard. It was horrible. It really looked like a bomb went off. I'm not kidding you. I took the video showing how the rain was coming, and it was coming pretty hard and fast and loud. When I was out back planting my little flower bed, I got all done. And husband kept saying, you better get in the house because, you know, it's going to rain. And he saw lightning. I said, okay. I was just kind of putting up my gardening tools and all that. I thought, okay, now I'm going to get into the house. I came in the back door. I took off my shoes. I went into my living room to shut the first living room window because it was blowing pretty good. And that's where I saw the sky just almost like it was black, like nighttime, really. And I thought, well, gosh, this is quite a storm coming. And then I heard the sound. It sounded like a freight train. And I'm not kidding you, it was a roar. And I like my doggies are roaring. Just a minute, let me let them in the house. It's amazing to me how I want to start a video and my two little dachshunds either have to start barking about something, they're whining to either get in or out the back door, something. But I'll try to continue. All right, so anyway, with this storm that came, and it was a big one, it started out really pea size on the hail, got to be a dime size, got to be a quarter size. Some places it was golf ball size. And when a hail ball that's hard, water ball, is that big, it causes damage. Where I live close to our local fairgrounds, and they actually had head injuries. They really did. So that wasn't too good. So I went out to kind of assess the situation after it finally stopped raining and everything was quieted down. And all you could see was hail all over everything with hail. And it looked like it had just snowed in June, okay? Then I was really kind of sad, shocked, that I thought, my gosh, it has just torn up everything of trees, of my leaves. Thank goodness big trees didn't come down of branches. I am thankful for that. But my grapes, they took a big hit. I've lost probably half the grapes. I don't know. My peach tree, I collected a bucket of the peaches that just are all on the ground. I was just sick about that. My little cart, my little wood cart that I have out there by my chicken coop and stuff, all those flowers were just disintegrated. So what do? Well, you look around and you think, all right, what needs to be replaced or can be replaced? I clipped off all the bad leaves that were really destroyed on some of the trees, and I really had to just kind of wait it out a couple of days until everything dried out, where I could start raking, and because it's wet leaves and wet flower petals, everything. I had to wait on all that until I can get my leaf blower and blow a lot off the driveway, things like that. I replanted in my cart, my white cart, and I planted, the one that I plant in the middle that looks purple, it's called a lobelia. No, sorry, that's the edging. Those are the little blue flowers that I like so well, that I plant. Oh, I've planted them out by my roses on this side. They are a good edging flower that's so pretty. Then I bought what's called dianthus, which they look like little miniature carnations. Yeah, so I planted that, and that's on each side of the little cart. And I'll show a picture after I get done painting it, maybe later today, because the paint took a real hit. Even my little picket fence out back that I had just finished painting last week, I got to pre-paint the whole thing again. There's little chunks of that all out from the hail. Yeah, go figure. And then I planted in the middle, I like those what's called woodland sage. They're a purple. They almost look like lavender that's growing, only deeper purple. And they're real pretty as a centerpiece in any little flower bed. So those are the flowers that I chose again for my garden cart. Was the dianthus that looks like a pink carnation. They're pretty, and I got those at Lowe's. And the lobelia of the little blue flowers that you can find most anywhere, Walmart, Lowe's, Home Depot, in any little garden area, you can find that. Those were the edging flowers. And then the woodland sage, and that's the pretty one in the middle. So by the time I redid all of that, took the hose to everything of getting it even had particles of my the roofing of the shingles, just little pieces, shavings like, that was all over the driveway and everywhere. So it was cleanup, and it's still cleanup for a couple of days. Glad I didn't get hurt. Glad windows didn't get broken. The vehicles were all fine, all of that. But boy, my plants did take a hit. I'm hoping it comes back, praying. But plants are pretty hardy, so I think I'll be okay. So I got a couple of emails from some really good friends that said, Diane, you've been watching this trial, this Lori Vallow Daybell trial. Oh yeah, I've been watching it. And one of them actually even said, could you please do kind of a recap and keep me updated, because I'm at work and I can't watch it. I'm too tired when I get home at night, but I'm really interested. Could you just kind of keep following along and let me know? And another one just this morning texted me and said the same thing. I said, I'll try. I'll do my best. And if you're not interested or it's not your cup of tea, really, I understand. But this is a big, big murder case. It really is. You might as well be watching O.J. Simpson and how everybody was tuned into that. So there's a couple of things on this one. It's kind of her final chapter, I guess. And the case really does just kind of suck you in. It really does. So I was shocked when I watched last week, because the week before that, Lori got sick and played like she got sick. I don't think she really was, because it came out she didn't really have anything. Okay, so she comes back to court this last week, and I mean, she pulled everything, all the stops out by holding her head down, you know, on the table. She had a headache, refusing to have ibuprofen. She's still on this judge, and she can't stand the judge. And he's up to here with her. His patience, I think, now is running thin. It really is. So there was a couple of opening things that I'd like to go over. And I had never seen this in a courtroom, what actually happened in there. Now, what you don't know, jurors don't know, other people that are just watching don't know, is that she's wearing what's called a rack belt. It is what kind of very similar to what I wear when I'm out gardening. It's a Velcro belt. I use it so my sciatic nerve doesn't act up on me. People that lift a lot, well, this one has something else in it besides that. It can be a stun gun that an officer can actually stun her if she was flight risk of, you know, she's gonna dodge out that door and run away. Well, that didn't happen. I was kind of waiting for that. But the words, "take her out," by the judge, that happened. And she was booted out of the courtroom. Why? Because she likes to argue with the judge. She really does. You don't argue with a judge. I never have heard that you can argue with a judge. Rebuttal a few things, question a few things, but she darn right argues and is very disrespectful for this judge. Okay, so that's one that I'm sure will be another t-shirt, plastered on a t-shirt, "take her out." Okay. After that, this case is all about, this is the final one, and it's all about her niece's ex-husband, Brandon Bordeaux, that got shot at, almost died. He really did. Now, 6 years later, he's going to trial to say she's the one behind all of this, with her brother Alex, of course. Ex-wife Melanie Bordeaux, which all this time we never knew until this last week now, that the state opened her mouth and said that it's an open case with her. She still can be charged on accessory to the crime. Yeah, that one I think pleased a lot of people. There's two Melanies. There's the Melanie Bordeaux Pulaski, and then there's Melanie Gibbs. And both of them have known a lot, were involved with different things, and we've all said, why haven't those two women been charged in some way with all these murder cases? Don't know. I guess you have to just wait. It's taken 6 years now before Brandon Bordeaux, you know, can have his time in court. And so here it is. So it's been interesting as far as all of that. Lori can't seem to keep her mouth shut of trying to open the door on, she's portraying herself as, I'm not this bad person, I'm a loving person, you know, she loves all people, everything. Well, the judge and the prosecutor is trying to say, if you keep doing this, that's opening the door for us to now tell that jury, you have 4 murder convictions. She's up there in Idaho serving multiple life sentences for the rest of her life for the murder of her children. I mean, we have to back up. We have the murder of her 4th husband, Charles Vallow, and I think I said last week it was her 3rd husband. She's married 5 times, people. So it's a little confusing at times to remember all of this, but her 4th husband, Charles Vallow, that she conspired with her brother, Alex Cox, who, yes, now is dead. So he can't be there to say anything. Or she'd throw him under the bus too, I'm sure. And let me back up before I even start any of this of a recap. I'm just a woman that sits in her house and watches the same thing you're watching on either YouTube, maybe your smart TV, which I've started to do. I've started to watch all this on my YouTube channel on my smart TV, because the phone, I get a creak in my neck when I'm sitting here looking at my phone like this, so it's better to watch it on TV. I recommend doing that, either an iPad or your TV if you have a smart TV that you can pick up YouTube to watch all this. I am no judge, no lawyer. I'm not a psychiatrist. I'm not a reporter, journalist, any professional, not a law officer, nothing in law enforcement, nothing. My opinion means nothing. Really, it's just my opinion. So please take it with a grain of salt, really. I don't have sides either way. I've just been watching this trial of a very interesting person here that has done some horrible things. And she keeps thinking to herself, I'm okay. I didn't do anything wrong. It's the other guy. Yeah. Okay, so to refresh on, she was convicted of being conspiring to commit the murder of her husband, 4th husband, Charles Vallow. She was found guilty. She hasn't been sentenced yet. She could get 25 to life on that particular case. You have to back up to 2019 when all this occurred with her daughter, 16-year-old daughter, Tylee Ryan, and her son that was only 7 years old, J.J. Vallow, that killed, buried in the pet cemetery of her current husband, Chad Daybell. Yeah. Tammy Daybell, which was Chad's wife of 30 years, they had to exhume her body and found out she was strangled to death. Asphyxiation. I never can say that word. Yeah. And now Brandon, the attempt on his life. Now, you have to go back to watching her trial, Chad's trial, and Charles Vallow's trial to really understand what this cases are all about, of a cult religion, cult leader, Chad Daybell, turns Lori Vallow into another cult leader. All the things, weird things that they believed of zombies and a percentage of death. If you were dark, you were eliminated, you were killed. Which brings us to Brandon Bordeaux. He was one of them. He was deemed one that was dark, and so were either 1 or 2. I know 1, might have been even 2 of his children. He has 4 kids. Deemed dark, and so they needed to be killed. Okay, so he gets almost shot, and he flees. He really does. He gets away. He goes over to his parents in Salt Lake City with all of his 4 kids, because he doesn't know who's going to be after him next. Alex, Lori, maybe his ex-wife. You know, it just was ridiculous. And this is a man that testified right out of the gate last week. It was Lori's first witness, you might say, well, the state's, and then Lori has to cross witness. Right out of the gate, he gets up there, and you could just tell, even 6 years later, This was hard for him to talk about. His whole life was disrupted. You know, the marriage ended, death of his grandfather, that the wife at that time wouldn't even go to the funeral. And then being accused that he was gay, being accused that he hacked his, it would be aunt, Melanie's Aunt Lori, her computer over temple recommendation being revoked, and that's a big deal with the LDS Church, which he didn't have any part of any of it. That's what he says anyway. Okay, so we go from all learning about all the deaths, and I didn't tune into Lori's trial up in Idaho, didn't know anything about it. I didn't know anything about Chad Daybell and all of his trial with lawyers and everything. Didn't know anything about that. He's on death row. I tuned into the one that was in Chandler, Arizona on the Charles Vallow case. And I got hooked, I really did. And now I'm on to this one because they were close together, you know, just a month ago that all that happened. Now they're close together. So I am following this one. So the state opens with their first statement of telling you a little bit about the case that the jurors, 8 men and 8 women, that are sitting on this jury. She opens up, and really this young woman, she does a good job. She really does. It's all about a Jeep back in October 19th of 2019. And then it's about Brandon's car, this Tesla car. Well, he owned the Tesla. I don't know if he bought it in 2016 or closer to 2019. I don't know. But it's a pretty fancy car. And whether you like Teslas or not, you know, whatever, it was a pretty fancy car. The only thing it didn't have was some SD card for the camera. I didn't know Teslas had cameras all the way around the car. If he had had that, it would have shown a lot more. But they go into how that bullet hit right above in the door frame, right above his head, of how when you put the car in park, then the door automatically opens, glass shattered, you know. They go into all of that, talk about all of that. Alex Cox, again, Lori's brother, who apparently did this shooting. Maybe, maybe not, I don't know. I kind of think there's 2 people. They have receipts and everything to prove that he went and spent $200 to get a professional, as dark as it could be, of tinting on that Jeep. You know? And all Brandon saw was, yes, the end of a barrel of a gun, a rifle. It wasn't a handgun, it was a rifle that he thought had some kind of either silencer or muzzle, something on the end of it. That's what he could see when he drove up to his driveway, of having this Jeep parked in a weird direction in his driveway, and boom, the shot goes off. Okay? What I don't think Lori was counting on was a couple things from the state. One, there was a neighbor across the street. Well, if you're in a subdivision of homes, yes, everybody gets in their car at pretty much the same time of the day and they go to work. Boom, they're gone. But sometimes not. Sometimes they're around. And this one gentleman across the street, he noticed the Jeep. There's always been a white van that's been parked there every day across the street. You notice that when you, and take a look around, you know, your house, your neighborhood all the time when you see things, you know, and something out of the ordinary. Now there's this, what he calls puke green. Brandon calls the Jeep puke green color. Wasn't very attractive color. All of a sudden it pulls up. Dark, dark windows. It's parked the opposite way in front of this van. So they're nose to nose. Strange, right there. But apparently the neighbor didn't stick around long enough to hear the shot or see anything else. He went off to the gym, I guess. Okay, but when investigators get there and they go house to house, this was number 2 of, I don't think Lori counted on. First, an eyewitness actually saw the Jeep right there. and 2 was a Ring doorbell. Well, you know, we all have Ring doorbells, or most of us do. And you can see across the street. They go quite a ways that you can see things. And this one lady that she didn't live in the house anymore, she gave the footage over to the police like they asked. You can hear the rifle shot in the Ring doorbell. I mean, it makes you jump. I watched it twice and jumped both times. And you can see the dark vehicle of the Jeep in that Ring doorbell. And if I was the jury sitting there, and you can take notes, you're not allowed to keep the notes. They go back to, I guess, the judge or somebody, and I guess they get shredded later. But you're taking notes. That'd be one thing I'd write down. 1, a neighbor saw the Jeep. 2, Ring doorbell, you know, and the footage that was on that. Wow, pretty compelling evidence right there. But they have so much more, just like what they did in the Charles Vallow case. GPS, cell phone data, everything of pinging off of, whether it's a burner phone or what, it's going to nail you. It really is, as far as your location of where you're at and things you're doing, text messages and emails. Okay, so after the nice little testimony from Brandon, which I'm sure was hard on him to sit and know that I have spent dinners with you. You have been to my house, you know, our kids played together, everything, and now I'm looking right across you knowing you conspired to do this with your brother, of having me killed because you think I'm dark on this cult religion that you were in. It'd be pretty hard to swallow, I would think. Yeah. Then we went from that to, there was a FBI agent that testified as far as, you know, of they're finding the Jeep, they're going through the Jeep, of everything, of DNA on the steering wheel, the gear shift knob. There was a little spot of blood that matched Alex Cox. There was gunshot residue in the Jeep. Gee, how compelling is all that? I'd be taking notes on all that too, as a juror. I really would. So as you're going along, you're thinking, okay, we've got a neighbor, we've got another neighbor, we've got all these people that are coming aboard now testifying. Very important people, not just the police, you know, these are detectives, investigators that are coming aboard. And one of them, I wrote down his name. They investigate about the storage locker that she rented up there in Rexburg, Idaho, of how they took that tire of the Jeep off. They took the back seat, Lori and Alex and Chad Daybell's in on this too. They take it out so that Alex can have a clear shot out the back of that Jeep for shooting. They take those items out and they put in a rented storage locker that Lori rented and paid for. After the shooting, they have records showing on her phone, both her and Alex, how they are Googling to see about a shooting in that area, you know, whether he lived or died, in other words. And then they go back and then they go back to the storage locker and they put the tire and the back seat back in Lori's car, I guess, to put back on the Jeep. It's like, dang, you know, you did the murder of Charles Vallow, and it was sloppy at best. Now you're trying to do another one, and you're not very good at this because you're leaving little trails, little breadcrumbs everywhere. Really, she is. She's leaving them on her phone, text messages, emails, everything. Alex Cox, right there along with her on all this. And mark my words, Melanie is behind a lot of this too. What does Melanie have to gain of her ex-husband now, of him being shot? Money, a life insurance policy, $1 million life insurance policy, just like it was in Charles Vallow case. Yeah. Wow, things are all over money, isn't it? It's astonishing. So conspiracy to commit first-degree murder. That's what she's being accused of. About the time that Brandon was cross-examined on different things, I wrote them down. I counted 20, I count here. I marked it down. It's astonishing to me. 26. I may have missed a couple. 26 objections that the state objected to how Lori was asking a question on different things. It was different, to say the least. So Brandon told his story. Detectives told their story. When Lori decided to cross-examine a couple of the detectives, she bowed out on a couple of them because it was, I think, way over her head. She didn't know what to ask them on different things, especially on pieces of glass where they fell on the road or different things. She started out in her opening statement that she really was blaming Brandon. He set all this up. He did this to himself, and then he blamed her. Yeah, I'm hoping that the jury saw right through that one, really. Out of the 22 witnesses that are down, I guess, to be up there and talk about all this, well, we're done with 5 of them. And I said, I wrote notes just to remind myself of, gosh, I can't believe this is going on. Well, then after this Detective Pillar, that he talked on things, that's when they took they had to do a sidebar, and it was a 15-minute sidebar. And yes, she rises for the jury. But what the people, and this is why I like to watch the other videos, is that they'll say, she doesn't stand for the judge when he comes in or goes out of the courtroom. She'll stand for the jury, though. She doesn't like this judge. Okay. So this was the big jaw dropper. On after the little recess of letting the jurors out is when the judge is trying to tell her not to open the door because of these other convictions, unless she wants to, I guess. And that's when she starts arguing with him and telling him, you don't need to talk to me. You don't need to raise your voice at me. You don't need to talk to me like this. And that's when he said stop. And that's also when he said take her out. And he said it 3 times to the officer, the bailiff that was by the door right behind Lori, take her out. Get her out of here. Okay, she had to leave. After the 15 minutes, they all come back all composed. And the judge stands at his pulpit, and he's saying, his bench, in other words, there's not going to be more of this. And she does apologize because he's making it very clear. You keep on with this, and then you waive your right, I'll revoke it, that you won't be able to defend yourself as an attorney. I will appoint an attorney for you, because they're tired of her nonsense, really. It's getting beyond ridiculous. It's getting to the point of just kind of childish. When the man came on, his name is Tom Ozark. He's a state trooper and Secret Service. Smart man, really smart guy. He's the one that talked about that he investigated the Jeep and Alex Cox's F-150 truck and the GPS data that was received. I call it the motherboard in my car, all that computer, stuff that makes your car run nowadays. Yeah, they go over that with a fine-tooth comb. And she did not cross-examine him. That was way over her head. So today starts day 3, I guess it is, day 3 of continuing with this trial. And I don't know what's going to happen. I mean, that was quite something to see a judge order, her out of the courtroom. And some have said, well, why didn't they use the stun gun and stun her? Well, she didn't attack him up at the bench. She didn't get up out of her chair and start leaping towards him. And she didn't start to exit in any one of the doors. So I guess that's what the stun gun was all about, of we're going to stop you in your tracks if you do that. So there was no need to do that of the stun belt, of this rack belt. But he did want her out of there. He was tired of listening to her argue with him, and he didn't have to put up with that. He's a judge, for heaven's sakes. Have a little bit more respect. So this week I'm real anxious to see, is she gonna open the door with her mouth of saying how wonderful she is? She wouldn't hurt a fly. That opens the door for the state to come in and say, really? You not only hurt like a fly, you not only sting like a bee, you caused all these murders and been convicted of it. Well, then, last night, after I got done doing a lot of my chores around the house and different things, I tuned in again to see kind of what was going on, or recap, did I miss anything? And I like to watch that Nate Eaton with the East Idaho News. I watch him and the Hidden True Crime with that gal. Both of them I think are very informative. And the East Idaho News, Nate is the one, because he's up there, and that covered all that. Excuse me. Covered all those trials up there in Idaho with Lori and Chad on their trial time. And he's come down to Arizona to do the trials down here. Anyway, I was listening to him. What I didn't know is behind the scenes. There was a couple of things. Behind the scenes, before she gets thrown out of the courtroom, she files another motion to have the judge recused from the case again, because she still thinks he's biased. It goes back to the same appellate judge of saying, no, you can't do this when you're right in the middle of a trial. So she gets shot down on that, denied. There's t-shirts, denied. Okay, and the second one was, behind the scenes that I did not know, was that they've already had it in motion. Now this has been a good year ago that all this happened up there in Idaho. Well, not that. It's been, because everything happened in 2019. So it's been a few years. Appealing a case, the appeals court. So she's appealing her case up there in Idaho, the one where she killed her kids. There's 5 things that are marked down. And how it was explained pretty easily is, now goes to the Supreme Court on this appeal. The Supreme Court doesn't have to agree on all 5, but if they find one, then they have to start all over with that trial. I just think that's ridiculous. I really do. Really, I do. Over like a little technicality on something. But how many people have lost a case on a technicality of either a lawyer didn't do something right or missed something, or a judge didn't do whatever and missed something, and they have to start all over again? I think it's ridiculous. I feel for the families. I feel for all those jurors. And the ones that did the, not only Lori's up there in Idaho, but really the one on Chad Daybell's case, they're still not over that. That was just something they're never going to forget, and they're having a hard time because they had to see those kids. They had to see autopsy pictures, everything of how they found those kids and what happened with the kids. And it's bad. It's really, really bad. So I hope that doesn't happen. I hope she gets denied on the appeal, because this is one right after the other. She's now stamped as a serial killer, and we'll see how this one comes out. I'm sure she's already got it in motion of putting the paperwork in to appeal for the Charles Vallow case. I'm just 100% sure of that, really. And that was heartbreaking too, for the families. Gosh, that was heartbreaking. So I don't know. I'm going to stay tuned to it. I hope I didn't. I mean, I've got a ton of notes. I had 15 pages of notes that I wrote down on it, different things. Why do I do this? It helps me write my murder mystery novels on a couple of things, and especially this courtroom behavior. I am incorporating in a book right now. Just in a roundabout way that I think, oh, I actually didn't know that could happen in a courtroom, or didn't know it would go down that avenue. And I'm, playing off of that too. So that's why I watch it anyway. It's interesting to me. I do have other interests besides cooking and my yard work that takes 3/4 of my time. It really does. But I'm going to get off now because I've got to go and take care of some things out back that I'm still working on. I just wanted to pop in on Tea Time Conversation. So good. When I find all my teapots, I'll add it to this. But I did bring this one out today to say, did you ever have this one? Have you ever seen it, or did you ever have it? Clear back in the 80s. I'm pretty sure it was the 80s that I got this one, and I've had it all these years and hung on to it. I used to have mine in a china cabinet, all my teapots, especially if the teacup and saucer matched it like this one does. I had them all displayed. I don't have room for that right now. And like I said, when I went through it, it's like, why in the world am I hanging on to all this stuff? Well, I'm not going to. I am going to get through all of it and weed out only a couple of them, maybe 3 teapots. Let's try to get it down to 3 that I really like. I do still like my silver set, and I do still like my, the one I show over here all the time that's gone completely out of my brain now, of the English Royal Albert. That set, I still like that. But all these other ones, it's like, who has room for all this anymore? I don't. Not at my age, I don't. And because I don't have daughters to pass all this down to, it'll be kind of a challenge for me to say, well, where are they going to go? And they've been with me for so long, where are they going to go? But I'll figure it out. I will. I hope all of you are having a wonderful start to your week, whether you are like me and tune into a trial, fix your yard from a horrible storm that happened, whatever it is. Comment and tell me. I'll get back in my kitchen and make a goodie. I will. I was pretty basic over the weekend of having just some simple things. And now we're going into heat. It's supposed to be 91 degrees today. So a lot of salads, and a few things that are just easy to make and don't have to be in baking or heating up that oven. No, it's barbecue time. It really is. And maybe I'll go out to the barbecue after I put the new cover on that the hailstorm ruined mine. I'll get out there and barbecue something. So from now, this is Tea Time Conversation from my kitchen to yours. I hope you've enjoyed my talks of whatever I talk about. My dogs are in the house under the cooler today. They're going to stay in. I don't put them out very long before they get, overheated, and I don't want to get them sick. And then they come back in. They actually went shopping with me to Lowe's and Home Depot. I put their little doggy bed in the basket, and I put them in there. Oh my gosh, you would not believe how many people want to come up and pet my dogs and ask, are they friendly? Can I pet them? Yes, they're very friendly. They really are. But you really should watch on that, because every little tiny little dog, they can nip. Mine don't, but I've been around cute little dogs that you barely go over to try to pet them and, pull back because they're liable to nip at your fingers. So mine aren't like that, but they had fun, and it wears them out by the time I put them in the car, turn on the AC, get them in and out of the car, get them in a basket, wheel them all over a store. By the time they get home, it's like a 2-year-old. It's nap time for them. And today, they're kind of tired today, so I'll be checking in on them a little bit more. So like I said, hope you have a good week. Start to your week. Go plant some flowers. And I'll catch you next time on Tea Time Talk. Okay, bye-bye.